Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is AD, also known as DJ Ogene. In today's podcast, we will be talking about noise pollution and the health of it, the effects of it. We will have a special guest, and for our special guest today, I'd like to introduce you to Professor at Millikan University, Sam Meister. Hey, Sam.
Hey, how are you, AD?
I'm good. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Sam Meister. As you said, I'm faculty here at Millikan University. I am an instructor in the School of Art and Creative Media, teaching classes in multimedia communication, and I also run WJMU, the campus radio station.
How familiar are you with the term noise pollution?
I have a general understanding.
What's your understanding of noise pollution?
My understanding is that there was a concept that was, I think, conversations about it became kind of publicly part of the zeitgeist in the late 70s and early 80s. And there was concern that industrialization, as well as all kinds of elements of, electrical amplification of sound that was constantly surrounding us, particularly in urban and industrial areas, was bad for human beings. That the long-term effects of that overwhelming sound not only had physical, but also had mental health downsides, disadvantages.
Noise pollution, in short terms, is unwanted or harmful presence of sound caused by human activities or day-to-day sounds, noises, and so on. What are some daily noise elements that you hear, whether it's you're commuting from work or commuting to work, or if it's just you waking up in the morning? What are some of those noise elements that you hear?
Well, so probably for me, like the number one noise element is either construction or just traffic. Both of those tend to be pretty common. I don't live all that far from campus, so my regular commute doesn't have overwhelming noise pollution. But in cases like when there's street work being done or something like that would be a primary source of noise pollution.
Can you think of everyday situations that add to noise pollution in your surroundings?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, construction ends up being a big one. Also, in Decatur, and particularly on the campus of Millikan University, trains tend to be a tremendous disruptor, especially in a situation where you're in a classroom and you're giving a lecture, or even worse, and I've had this happen quite a bit, when I have public speaking courses and I'm working with introductory students who are just getting their confidence, just getting their feel, just getting their flow, and in the middle a train interrupts them. In fact, in the past, I've kind of always had a policy that if you want to just stop and wait for the train, you can, although that's kind of awkward too. Anyway, yes, trains, big problem here on the campus of Millikan University, as well as a lot of traffic elements. Again, construction. We're right next to a state highway, and so we get quite a bit of noise from that as well.
This reminds me of the article called "The Effect of Traffic Noise on Divided Attention and Perception Concerning Individual Role Differences," which was an experimental study. The article suggests that high noise levels from things like traffic, planes, construction sites, and trains can impair cognitive function. Did you know that according to associations of long-term exposure to transportation noise and traffic-related air pollution with the incident of diabetes, a prospective cohort study, it says that the most effective noise pollution on mental health are trains, traffic, construction, and airport. It impacts the health and the risk of developing diabetes. How familiar are you on actions to reduce noise pollution?
Well, I am familiar with the fact that there's been a lot of government efforts to do this. Again, particularly over the last 40 or 50 years. I'm not really 100% on the timeline, but when the concept of noise pollution first got introduced, there was a lot of controversy over what was the responsibility of government in reducing noise pollution, particularly when it is often government subsidized industries like the train industry and construction and elements like that are primary causes of noise pollution, well, what then is the government responsibility in reduction of noise pollution? So as far as specific efforts by any government, I'm not particularly familiar with that, but I do know it was a question as to how much is the government responsible for reduction of noise pollution?
What can you do personally and in your community to lessen noise pollution?
Well, there are all kinds of arguments about this. Obviously, one of the elements, so much of this has to do with transportation. And there are aspects like public transportation versus private transportation. And in both cases, those things contribute significantly to noise pollution. But there are arguments that say, well, if more people use public transit, then the reduction of noise pollution from private transit would cancel out any of the noise pollution from public transit. Again, I'm not entirely certain with how much research has gone into that. I assume that some has been done. I, again, don't know how much any of those things have been implemented in terms of public relations approach to getting that to be something that more and more people do. Again, there probably are conflicting numbers from conflicting studies saying, well, this would work, and other studies saying, well, this would work. So I'm not entirely certain of what efforts have been taken. But personally, I would say I try to reduce noise pollution by walking more when I can. I probably don't do it nearly enough, but I think anybody would say that.
How familiar are you with the noise level decibels?
I do a little bit of work with decibels when it comes to elements of sound design, audio engineering. Obviously, it's something that I discuss in my Essentials in Audio class. There are, of course, all kinds of verified research that says that, there are certain decibel levels that if you sustain hearing at that decibel level, you'll eventually sustain some long-term hearing loss. In addition to, of course, short-term hearing loss, which is really common at high decibels, or when someone experiences high decibels. So, I know the concept, but I don't think I could definitively do a decibel calculation in terms of signal noise reduction and Pascal's calculation or something like that. But yes, I know decibel.
What do you think is the link between noise pollution and difficulty sleeping?
Well, I think there's just an empirical link that says that physical factors or I should say environmental factors, obviously have a great impact on human beings' sleep and sleep patterns and the quality of sleep that they get. And so I think there's plenty of evidence scientifically that also backs up that empirical observation. Numerous psychological studies talking about how elements of noise preventing sleep in a long-term situation can have prolonged negative effects on the subject who is experiencing interruptions of sleep from noise.
This reminds me of another article called Study on the Effect of Noise Pollution on Public Health. The article discussed the impact of noise pollution on human health. It suggested that noise pollution, especially from sources like road traffic, can lead to a wide range of health problems, including sleep disorders. Do you think that having a quiet space is important for mental well-being?
I do think it is, but I think that individuals probably define their quiet space differently.
How do you define your quiet space?
I define it very personally. No, I would say that, I don't have a particular routine when it comes to attempting to find quiet space. Sometimes that's particularly difficult in my job, but I do believe personally that spending some time away from prolonged noise, even if it's a short period, can have mental health benefits for individuals.
Thank you for coming and being a part of this interview. Is there anything you would like to leave the viewers, listeners, and any information that you're aware of regarding noise pollution that you think may save some people?
Well, I don't know about saving some people, but I'd say that probably one of my favorite things in terms of sound design, just looking at the decibel scale, is talking about where people experience the quote-unquote threshold of pain, and the theoretical death note, which is the idea that at 202 decibels, which is an amount of noise that has never been collectively created because the decibel scale is tiered. But anyway, at 202 decibels, theoretically, the human body would just shake apart. We would not be able to withstand the physical movement of sound through the body that would occur at 202 decibel. I always think that's just a kind of, again, an interesting theoretical end game.
Well, any last thoughts you want to leave, and any questions that you have?
No, just want to say thanks for interviewing me, and I enjoyed the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this podcast series of noise pollution. My name is AD, also known as DJ Ogene, and today we'll be having special guests, getting their opinions and how aware are they on noise pollution. Today we have
Helena.
Hey Elena, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, AD?
I'm good. So tell us, how familiar are you with noise pollution? When you hear noise pollution, what does that mean to you?
I actually don't have any understanding of what noise pollution is.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, noise pollution is unwanted or harmful presence of sounds caused by human activities, which negatively impacts health, well-being, and natural balance of ecosystems. Do you think you'd be able to identify common sources of noise pollution? Maybe when you wake up in the morning, leave the house, when you come to school, what are things that you hear?
Yeah, so because I'm an RA on campus, my commute to and from class is pretty quick, and it's mostly just a walk through campus since I live in the residence halls. And I think primarily when I'm in bigger cities, the main sources of that I kind of hear are traffic, cars honking their horns, and construction that's happening on the streets. Maybe there's a street performance going on. Those are some of the examples that come to mind.
How do you think noise pollution affects your health, mentally, physically?
I guess I hadn't really thought about it because usually when I'm walking around places, I have my earbuds in, and then I'm kind of listening to my own music and kind of tuning the noise out, I guess.
Kind of tuning the noise out. And the effects of noise pollution can cause stress, sleep disturbances, and potential long-term issues with hearing loss. Being around loud noises for a long time can make you permanently lose your hearing, and it often happens in places like you mentioned, traffic. It can happen in factories as well. If you live close to like busy roads or airports, then it can cause that. Being in a noisy environment, it can mess up your sleep. It can cause problems like insomnia. Even low-level background noise can make you tired and less able to think clearly when you're awake. Also, even with too much noise, over time, it can make your body release stress hormones like cortisol. This can lead to higher levels of stress and anxiety, affecting your mental health in the long run. Were you aware of any of that?
No, it makes sense though when you talk about the lack of sleep aspect, because I think most people don't realize how important sleep is for your day-to-day routine. A lot of people that are not getting, when you go to the doctor and you tell them that you have an issue, the first question they ask is, have you been getting enough sleep, or what are your sleeping habits like? So that makes a lot of sense, and I wonder if, and I think that is the case where it's a bigger issue in bigger cities that have more traffic, more buildings, just more population density in general, to where those noises can occur more, whereas in suburbs or towns in the Midwest that are basically cornfield after cornfield and farms and stuff, where there's not that much population density, there's not as much noise pollution. So I wonder if there's a health correlation between where people live. So that could be something to look into too.
Yeah, and also even being exposed to it for too long is linked to higher risk of heart problems, such as like high blood pressure and an increased chance of heart attacks and strokes. If you didn't know, noise pollution, it can make it hard to concentrate and learn, affecting your overall ability to think clearly. This is especially concerning for kids and students. They're surrounded by a lot of noises where they go. It can be traffic, it can be just the walking in the room and the class is loud, or it could be trucks. All of that can affect their health.
I've definitely noticed a lot of comments from students that are neurodivergent in some way. Maybe they are autistic or have ADHD, and sometimes a loud learning environment can be very overstimulating for these people, and it drops their concentration by a lot, and it impedes their learning abilities as well.
Yeah. According to this, the effect of traffic noise on divided attention and perception concerning individual role differences, which was an experimental study. They were investigating the impact of noise pollution on cognitive functions and how it relates to people's personal traits. They claim that noise pollution does make it harder to concentrate and learn. You won't be able to think clearly, and it can cause like depression and a high risk of psychiatric disorders and an overall like decline in your well-being. What are some actions do you think you could take to help reduce noise pollution and the effects of it?
Oh wow, I'm not sure. Things that I could personally do to reduce noise pollution in general? That's a hard question.
I know you say you use headphones for it. That's one way to reduce, and just being mindful, being part of community that takes action to help promote regulations to create a quiet zone, and also just raising awareness of it to other people can help reduce it, because a lot of people don't know much about noise pollution or never heard of it and don't even know that it affects them. So if you can raise an awareness, helps. So time.
And I guess also being mindful of my own volume and speaking in classrooms and stuff for those people that are having a harder time focusing.
Why do you think having a quiet space is important for mental well-being?
I think a lot of people, myself included, work best when they're in complete silence. I'm not somebody that usually works with music or headphones playing, so I think having that option for those people is very helpful.
Yep, it allows for relaxation, focus, and emotional balance. Basically constraint from noise, and you will be able to just get a lot more done. You feel better, you feel a lot better than being in a space where it's loud and cannot focus. It's just doing a lot of damage to you. You're not aware of that. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
I appreciate you for coming in to do this podcast with me. And what is something you've learned, and what do you want to say to people?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot actually. The information that you provided was very helpful. I guess I had never thought about the issue, and I think that's part of the problem too, is that people just don't think about it that much. So I think it's important to raise awareness, and it's important for people to understand this concept and how it can be harmful to people and ways that you can benefit from not having noise pollution. Thank you.
Thank you for coming through. Happy to have these special guests come in and share their opinions, thoughts, to see how aware they are of noise pollution. It seems like a lot of insight has been shared on both ends. Grateful for that. Tune in next time on the next podcast. Everybody take care.